embracing automation and robotics in manufacturing can help drive productivity, improve job satisfaction, well-being and work-life balance for employees. Today we're going to talk to Mark Gray, UK and Ireland Country Manager at Universal Robots, to hear his thoughts. Universal Robots obviously one of the leading suppliers of cobots to different manufacturing sectors. So hi, welcome Mark. And first of all, obviously automation and robotics is obviously a big buzzword at the moment, obviously, in how to improve productivity and help grapple with some of the issues that we face. I just wondered how you know, from your perspective, how can embracing automation and robotics can boost productivity and efficiency?
Yeah, it's one of the things that we've been kind of preaching about over the last few years, really, when we've done these mobile roadshows. And basically, by balancing out tasks with people, robots can help increase productivity that way. So you're reducing cycle time by robots taking over some of the tasks next to people. And that's where we're seeing the biggest sort of gains in productivity. And also robots tending machines and processes when everybody else has gone home to get that kind of lights out extra capacity. So that's where we're seeing the main gains. And specifically with smaller companies as well, SMEs, that are starting to look at this because they face the biggest challenges to try and find labour in the first instance.
And obviously, you work across different manufacturing sectors, don't you? Have you got any sort of examples of how you've worked with any companies and stuff to improve? You know, you've obviously, your solutions have boosted their business. Yeah,
so there's a lot of times where Brexit has actually forced companies to rethink how they make things because they can't get labour and they maybe have to increase capacity. And sometimes that might involve putting a night shift on, and trying to find people to work a permanent night shift is very, very difficult. So we work with smaller companies like eTech up in Blackburn, and they've put robots onto their machines so that they can load up parts during the night hours and get extra capacity out of an existing machine. And that's where kind of smaller companies see the biggest benefits, really, because they're not having to buy another machine and get another guy and set up an extra shift. It's using what you've already got just with an extra robot and actually gaining more out of it. So that's where we see the biggest gains in those sort of smaller companies.
So obviously that long-term return on investment is so important, isn't it? And I guess that's seeing it as the future. That's where you have to view that investment, don't you, in automation and robotics?
Yeah, I mean, people think about robots generally as being very expensive and having a long return on investment, but generally ours are relatively inexpensive compared to the other sort of automation solutions that are out there. So between 9 to 12 months is a kind of typical payback for us. And if that's on one shift, if it's over 3 shifts, then it can be a lot less than that, depending on the task. But yeah, that's one of the things that's always been difficult to convince people to use automation, is that upfront investment. And we actually have a leasing scheme now. We partner with a global leasing company, so it's possible for people to pay for the robot over a monthly cost, similar to leasing a company vehicle. And one of the things that we see is probably going forward there'll be a human payroll and there'll be a robot payroll running side by side, so you'll be able to pay for the robots on a monthly basis rather than just an upfront cost to get them into production.
And how have you seen the uptake in the UK, in UK manufacturing, for example, in terms of your cobots?
So we've actually grown consecutively for the last 5 years, where the actual robot market fell. The industrial robot market fell last year because of larger companies such as the big automotive people. They've generally installed new robots when they have a new model launch, but that's kind of slowed down. But we're seeing that smaller business market, the SME market, has been much more receptive to the needs. And since COVID, people are being driven towards using automation and cobots because there is a lack of skilled labour with things like welders. There's a lack of people willing to work in those sort of production environments, just like palletizing a box at the end of a production line. Whereas before, we could get cheap available labour from Eastern Europe. That's no longer a reality, so we're having to automate. But it means that there is a route out for people. Automation is a route out for some of these manufacturers to do. But the good thing with automation is the costs are fixed. Once it's in, and that's it. You know what profit you're going to make in 5 years because you're making it the same as you were on day one. Labour costs are only going to do one thing; they're only going to increase.
And do you work with kind of any people on applications and stuff? Anybody to solve the difficulties and challenges people have? You obviously work with them, don't you, to get the best
We
solution
do.
rather than just selling them it and that's it.
We do. So we've kind of specialised a little bit. That there are some areas that we've kind of specialised with expertise to provide solutions that make it easy for people. And one of those is welding. So we have a global welding centre of excellence in America, and we have specific partners in the UK that can provide welding solutions. Then we have packaging, and our packaging centre of excellence is Barcelona, and we have UK companies that can provide those kind of solutions. And then we've got things like CNC machine tending. So we actually have a guy in the UK. His role is just purely to help the people in the precision engineering market to help them have automation. So yeah, we've kind of specialised in those sectors to make it easy. All the other things that we do, things as dispensing glue and screwdriving and soldering and all these sorts of things, we can do those as well. But these industries are where the quick wins are, and that's where we've sort of specified down on those, I think.
And obviously cobots are a little bit more of a softer entry as well. They're kind of working with people, aren't they? So is that kind of, do you see it as that obviously SME market is something that you know they're very receptive to your technology?
They are, because if you think about our economy, 99% of people are employed by SMEs in the UK and Ireland. So they are the major employer of the population, and they are facing the biggest pressures, I guess, with increasing costs and being able to hold on to labour. The biggest problem at the moment in the manufacturing sector seems to be, one, attracting younger people into that manufacturing environment. Two, people retiring because the ageing workforce is getting older and older, and every year that goes by, that pressure becomes more. And the third thing that most people don't talk about is actually retaining people. Once you've attracted people into that profession, you want to hold on to them. And you could maybe take away some of those tasks that they don't want to do, those horrible, dirty, dangerous and dull tasks, and let the robot do that, and then that makes their work-life balance better. So yeah, those are the three sort of main pressures that people are finding, and that's where automation and robotics are going to help, I guess.
So automation and robotics can really help, solve the skills shortage, can't it? Especially in engineering and manufacturing that we see across the country. It's really a solution, isn't it?
It is. I mean, specifically, if you think about welding, the average age of welders now is between 50 and 55. And when they retire, all that experience that they've gained over that long career will disappear from the industry. And we can't recruit quick enough. Now, we're going to have to find a solution to be able to carry out some of the more dull, repetitive tasks, and let the guys that are still working in that really use their skill to their advantage. Because human skill is the single biggest asset for any manufacturing business. You speak to anybody, and if you've got a great guy who's great at welding, you want to hold on to him. So you don't want him to do this, the boring sort of repetitive sort of things. Automate that out and let him concentrate on what he's really good at. And that's one example of filling in that gap, because as those people get older, that we're going to lose those skills from the industry. So we need to sort of backfill it, if you like.
And in terms of making it more attractive for the younger people, obviously automation, robotics, cobots that you have, obviously that gives more job satisfaction, doesn't it? And it entices maybe people in, and there can be better well-being and work-life balance, can't there, for people as well?
It can, and I think there's a new classification of job that's going to be created for people to look after robots. Not necessarily somebody coming out with the university with a degree, maybe somebody from an engineering background. There's quite a lot of work being done in the Scottish College network to do this, to create a pathway from school through to engineering. So there is a college that's set up as an automation hub. They will train the next generation of engineers with those skills to go and program cobots within those companies, but they also engage with those companies as well and help them with proof of principle work. But one day a week, they also engage with secondary schools. So you're getting children interested in manufacturing and engineering as a career, and then you've got a pathway straight from there into manufacturing, which is what we want to nurture. Because as an economy, we have to get stronger in our manufacturing base and more sustainable. And through part of that is automation, but we're going to need people to be able to support that automation, both on installs and maintenance and so on.
Do you see the government, in terms of, could they do more, you think, pushing automation and robotics as a solution to kind of boost productivity in general in manufacturing?
It's quite interesting. Yeah, it's quite interesting because Rishi Sunak is quite committed to this. The industrial strategy that was under Boris Johnson has never really been implemented because we've had quite a bit of turmoil in the government. Now they want to refocus on looking at automation and technology to increase productivity, because we're one of the worst production. We have one of the worst levels of productivity in Europe. But the capacity is there. So the government has got a desire to do that. They need to create an environment that's easy to get finance and easy to get training to do this sort of thing. And that's and awareness as well. Awareness is a big thing that they've got to be able to make all sorts of companies, large and small, aware of what's actually out there and what's possible. Because when we look at our European counterparts, they're way ahead of us. Germany's way ahead of us, and France even is way ahead of us. So that means there's a big opportunity for us to change. But, very interesting. I read Gordon Brown's report the other day there as well, and he's very big on manufacturing clusters, setting up these not centres of excellence, but clusters of excellence where you'll have a particular area that might be a centre for biopharma, and another one for vaccine research, another one for financial technology, another one for robotics. And by investing in those sort of sectors and those areas, we can start to incubate, and then we can get more and more out of those individual sectors.
Do you still hear, in terms of, obviously there's always that fear that people invest in automation and robotics and it reduces staff, which it actually doesn't. It grows business, doesn't it? It's not. That's not the case, is it? Is there still that feeling you get from some people, or is it?
Yeah, almost every press interview we get there's a negative connotation of robotics, where people say, well, it's either a person or a robot. That's how it works. It's that binary sort of thing. It very, very rarely is that kind of thing. It's very much a blend. Collaborative robots, by their very nature, being designed to work in the same space as humans. So by blending those roles together, a human and a robot working together, you can increase efficiency. People have always used tools or technology to do something simpler. So I don't know, 100 years ago, you had a logging, a logger would go out and he'd chop down a log with an axe. Well, if you asked somebody to do that now, he wouldn't know where to start. It'd be a chainsaw or an automated sort of tool to cut down the tree. It's how we've evolved, and that's the same with manufacturing. Robotics is only going to enhance, and when you increase productivity in a company, it actually creates jobs, because you're selling more, you're doing more, so you actually create more roles around that. It doesn't just get rid of everybody. Humans, like I say, are a really important asset to manufacturing businesses, and because we can't get cheap labour now, the feedback I'm getting from manufacturers is they want to hold on to the people that they've got and really appreciate the people they've got. And if they can make their work-life balance better and retain them, well, automation's the key to that. So,
and from your own sort of, being out about on road shows and around the country and things like that, there's not a resistance in the UK to adopting automation, is there, in robotics? Do you think it's everyone's keen to embrace it?
I think so, because we see it now as a technology that can help us rather than hinder us. If you look at a different culture, for example, Japan, there is no sort of there's no opposition to robotics at all, because they've got a relatively small population, a really strong immigration policy, and an aging population. They have to automate. So any task that they do in a factory, they will look at automating first, rather than just throwing labour at it. And if we get into that mindset, it'll be good for us, because it will be more sustainable for us, and it'll mean our manufacturing economy is much stronger.
So hopefully the next few years will continue to be strong, obviously, for Universal Robots. Obviously, you've now got a lot of robots, obviously, in operation, haven't you, in the UK? I'm not sure how many, but probably tens of thousands. Over how many have you got at this moment in time? Any idea? Or?
Well, we've got more than 65,000 globally, so we've got a huge footprint. We've got the biggest cobot footprint on the planet, basically. And we've got new developments coming out. We have a new robot that's going to come out in the new year, which is a larger payload, a 20-kilogram robot. We're actually building new factories now in Denmark, so we'll move to a new campus. I think that's in 2024. And we're just about to open an office in the UK as well, in Sheffield. So we'll be the first robot company in Yorkshire, which is pretty cool. So it's our commitment to the manufacturing industry in the UK that we've opened this office here. We'll be able to do training, and also we'll have a demo suite and a lab as well, so we can do evaluations for people.
Oh, fantastic. It'd be interesting to come and visit there sometime.
Yeah. Well, when we open it, we'll send you an invite.
Oh, brilliant. And so the future's bright definitely for automation robotics in the UK. You think we're on the right path now, obviously beginning to get closer to our competitors, aren't we? Hopefully, with utilising the technology.
I think so. And the fact that the government is quite receptive to this, and also Keir Starmer mentioned in his speech that we can't rely on foreign labour, so we've now got to, look at automation as filling that gap. It's something not to be fearful of. It's something to embrace, because when you look at Germany, their economy, they have lots of robots and there isn't mass unemployment, and South Korea has lots of robots and there isn't mass unemployment, and they're quite affluent society. So it's one of those things. Do we want some of that sort of sustainability in our economy? Yes, we do. Well, that's the route to look at.
Brilliant. Thank you very much for talking to us, Mark. Really interesting. And
No problem.
we'll talk to you again soon. Thank you.